Welcome to episode number 10. Second one this week. We're at double digits now. We're a double digit podcast right now. And today's going to be a special one. We're not going to be talking about a lot of sports. We're going to be talking about two games. Two games. That's all we're going to be talking about. Two games
Two
that are
games, four teams.
four teams. Any guesses? Final four. March Madness is still going on, guys. And of course, nothing better than Final Four games, right?
Was that a question?
Nothing better than Final Four games, right? I mean, look at it. You're playing in a big stadium. I've always loved when they play in that huge stadium. The lights are the brightest. They're playing in front of hundreds of thousands of people. It's really exciting. It's really cool to see. And we got four real good teams. He's dying.
Continue.
It's been a long week for the both of us. So we got NC State as the 11th seed, playing the number one seed at Purdue. And then, of course, you have Alabama, a football team generally, playing the number one seed UConn, which is arguably the most unstoppable team ever, I would say. It's pretty close. They're pretty insane right now. Going into the NC State game, and we're going to be looking at each of these teams. Let's talk about Purdue first. Let's talk about Purdue first, because I feel like people are not talking about Purdue as much as they should. Obviously, last year we remember what happened with Purdue losing to FDU in the very, very first round of the round of 64. They lost to FDU. And then this season, they're turning it all around. They beat Grambling State. They beat Utah State. They crushed Gonzaga, and they slipped by past Tennessee to make it to the Final Four for the first time. I think it's like the first time in like 40, 50 years Purdue has been this far too. And
I think
this
it's 58. Yeah. It's been a
something,
while.
something like that. And something that's really cool about Purdue and their team and their passion is, do you remember when Virginia lost to UMBC in 2016 and the next year they won the national championship? I totally see something happening here, especially with Zach Edey's last season on Purdue. Uh, Arguably one of the best big men in college basketball history, definitely of this decade for sure. He's definitely up there, one of the best players I've seen in a while. And they're playing a really hot team, but Purdue has some really, really strong players. Zach Edey obviously highlights a lot of it, but don't forget that Lance Jones is a dog as well. He's been playing pretty well. Fletcher Loyer has been playing really, really well. Braden Smith has been playing top-notch basketball as well. This is a strong, coached, well-coached team. They're going to have a lot going for them. It's going to be really exciting to watch. But what are your thoughts on Purdue, Isaiah?
Dude, I'm a huge Big Ten basketball guy. I'm wearing my Michigan shirt right now, but I've never been a big Purdue guy. I mean, they've been good for a while. They've had good teams. Jaden Ivey, I believe Gus Edwards. They've had very good teams. And those teams that are lower seeded go farther. Like, what, the last 3 years, they've been really, really dominant and they haven't gotten past the second round. So this year, for me, I haven't really in the second round. So I've been really surprised how good they've been. They didn't really do too much to surprise me until that Gonzaga game where they blew Gonzaga out of the water. But I mean, I think the big thing, especially for the three of the better teams in this, well, out of the four amazing teams, UConn, Purdue, and NC State, they're all heavily relying on their big man to win the game for them. And I mean, Zach Edey is very good. He's 7'4", can't throw a baseball hard, but can dunk a ball real easily. Um, he's a really, really good, really dominant player. He can't really shoot the ball well, so I mean, I'm a little interested to see his matchup with probably going to be DJ Burns, who's 6'9", who's still a lot, still like 7 inches shorter, but DJ Burns is going to be a physical guy. So I mean, it's going to be really interesting to see how he matches up against him. I know you need other players in that team. The Purdue team is good. They have depth. But I want to remind you of someone who I think a lot about. I think of Zach Edey and Luka Garza. Luka Garza was a two-time, I believe, two-time AP Player of the Year. Won the Big Ten, I believe, one time. I think he lost second time in the tournament. That guy's team was really, really good, and they didn't make it past the Sweet 16. That team was real. Luka Garza was a phenomenal college basketball player. He's had a decent college career or decent NBA career, but he was probably one of the best big men that I've seen play college basketball in recent memory. He's been the most dominant. Besides maybe Jalen Brunson's AP Player of the Year, it's been Luka Garza. He just could do everything. And Zach Edey is just same type of dominance. And it was a Big Ten, like the Big Ten big man, but Luca, it has to be the rest of the team. It can't just be Zach Edey. Zach Edey's going to be going up against two very good big men, most likely, when it comes to the next two games. So he's not going to be able to do the usual stuff. He's not going to be able to dominate the boards, really get in the paint and abuse teams who are maybe 6'6", 6'7" centers. Like he's really going to have to like figure it out, kick it around to his teammates, hit some threes. And I mean, the team they're playing is on probably one of the most historic runs we're probably ever going to see. An 11 seed game this far. Like they're playing a team that's really, really hot. And yes, Purdue is dominant, but I mean, it's their game to lose. It's been their game to lose this entire tournament. They've really shown that if they don't want to lose, they don't want to go home. You know, it's Zach Edey's last year, so he's really banking on this year. But I mean, they're really just gonna have to show how much they're gonna have to dig deep, show how much they really want it. And I mean, this game especially tomorrow, but the next two games for them, most if they play two games, are going to be the biggest games of all those players' careers. They're going to be playing against two of the best teams in the country, no matter who wins. If Alabama beats UConn, then they're probably going to be the best team in the country because they beat the best team in the country. And if NC State's the hottest team in the country right now, no one's better than NC State right now. So they have a long road ahead of them. But I'm excited to see the Purdue game. Zach Edey really has to step up, make sure that the rest of the team is playing up to his level, and they're really just going to have to produce hit shots.
Yeah, I think this matchup is going to be really interesting to see. Definitely very different from the Alabama UConn game. It's going to be relying on the big men, right? Relying on how well they can perform and how that matchup is going to be with each other. Because Zach Edey might be taller, but DJ Burns is a bigger guy. You know what I mean? So there's pros and cons to both, body types and skill sets and types of things. But
Mhm.
let's talk about NC State, man. I mean, I'm looking at NC State's road to the Final Four. Pretty impressive stuff. You beat Texas Tech, which most people predicted. You beat Oakland, which, was really tight. Oakland's a good team, and they shocked Kentucky. And then finally, you got beating Marquette, which is a big upset. And then the biggest one thus far, defeating their ACC rival, the Duke Blue Devils, which were talking a lot of trash, talking a lot of smack. And now NC State, this is a team, remember, that was this close to not making even the ACC tournament, is now in the Final Four against Purdue University. Super entertaining. Burns has taken the internet by storm, right? He's taken the internet by storm. But let's not forget, Ben Middlebrooks is playing really well. DJ Horn is playing really well. MJ Rice is having a good start.
Can I
So,
also hop in and talk about how important like transfer guys have been this year, especially in the Final Four? I saw a stat like DJ Burns, Horn, like all these guys. Alabama has a bunch. UConn's like two of their best five players are transfers. Like the transfer portal has been so much bigger, especially for this year in college basketball. Transfer portal has been huge. A lot of these guys transferred in. DJ Burns transferred twice. Like the transfer portal has been so much more effective this year, in my opinion, than it has been every other year it's been available. Like you're really seeing how important teams are for guys. And I just think that this is going to be a big step to seeing like I think right now this is off topic, but these players are now if NC State goes on a run, you're going to see the transfer portal becoming even bigger than it already is. Just because you're going to see guys like DJ Burns who went to Winthrop and Tennessee, like finally finding their place. But sorry about that. Continue, please.
no, all good, all good. The transfer portal has been really successful this year for a lot of these teams. I think it's really interesting to see that and that kind of role. And, a lot of these players don't play their best basketball because they're just not in the right system. They're not in the right coach system. They're not, trained a specific way. That's kind of what's going on with Burns. He's kind of blown up. Like, I don't know. I've never heard of Burns prior to NC State in his time. So, you got to make the right move. You got to trust yourself as a player and trust your basketball skills because just because you might be struggling in one team school does not mean you're going to be struggling in a different school. Just even with playing any sport, basketball, baseball, hockey, softball,
Football, yeah.
football, like all those things, like a guy could be performing better or worse than most places just because of where he is. So,
hmm I mean, yeah, that's NC State. Just I'll give you another comment in a
hey,
sec, but DJ Burns, like I love DJ Burns, and I really don't like the way that DJ Burns is used in games. I think DJ Burns has probably been the most dominant player in this tournament because he's been the most relied on. I think that's the issue of when I saw him in Oakland. That I'm just talking about how he's the closer for the team, and you could see like they're visibly giving him the ball in big possessions, which I think is it's really positive towards DJ Burns. Like they trust him that much. But against a team like Purdue, a team with a 7'4" guy who's going to be guarding you, having that guy, that matchup is going to be interesting. DJ Burns does have the width to compete with someone like Zach Edey, but he can shoot, he can get in the paint, but he's a real floater guy. He likes to jump shots. When you're playing a guy who's 7 inches taller than you, who's going to be that physical, like Zach Edey's not the skinniest guy, but he has like power. So it's going to be really interesting to see how the closer looks right now in DJ Burns. But as you said, like the rest of the team is balling. Horn was balling. The rest of the team is balling. I did not think they were going to be Duke, so I was really surprised. But that just shows you how hot they are. They beat the same team twice in the same month. That's how good this team is. Like Duke was really good. Jeremy McCain's probably gonna be a first round draft pick. Phillips gonna be a first round draft pick. That team is probably the best Duke team that I've seen in the last couple of years, overall wise in the tournament. So NC State, they're gonna have to really compete with this team. I think NC State has the advantage and they really know who they are as a team better. I think that Purdue is much better team, but Purdue also just like they haven't competed the same way NC State did. Like NC State has blown through these teams. Yes, Oakland wasn't close, or Oakland was very close. Marquette wasn't anything, but they're really getting by teams. Like they were down a lot of the Duke game, down a lot of the Marquette game. They were even down the Oakland game, and they fought, they crawled, they slashed their way back to winning those games. I mean, if I'm Purdue fans, you got to watch out. It's going to be a rough Saturday. I could see NC State winning this whole thing. Like NC State's good right now, and I think Purdue has two options. They can either get out of the way and let the NC State train roll through, or they're gonna have to really step up and prove that NC State isn't this team. Like as you said, this team barely made the tournament, so this team's really, really high. I think that DJ Burns is really gonna have to cook up. He's gonna really have to defend Zach Edey. I think if he can defend Zach Edey, you probably win this game. Even if he doesn't score a lot, you probably win that game because Zach Edey really has been the dominating force for them. So it's gonna be a really interesting Saturday.
Gonna be a really interesting Saturday. There's gonna be a lot of competition of the big men, as I was saying. Um, this is by far gonna be the biggest challenge for both Burns and Zach Edey's career up to this point, I think. It's really gonna come down. It's gonna be a lot of blocks, a lot of interior defense. But I think another thing that we could talk about too is like the 3-point shooting and that kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like there's gonna be a lot of threes, there's gonna be a lot of pass out because people are gonna double up on Burns and Edey, to be completely honest. I think that could be a real move for both these guys because let's say Edey's going in there, you can't have one guy defend Edey all the time. If you do that, both those guys are just going to get tired and they're just going to like collapse. So there's going to be a little bit of double coverage, I suspect. There's going to be a lot of zone. There's going to be a lot of passing out to the corner and hitting those big shots in the corner. So I think that could be an interesting point. But let's move on to the next
Well,
game.
before we move on, I want to hear who do you think is gonna win this game?
Hmm.
This is a really hard one.
Uh,
I'm very confused. Like I don't know anyone can win this.
I think NC State's going to win this just because of the momentum they have. And I know people don't like talking about momentum in sports, but it is a real thing. And they're just riding that high, really high right now. Obviously, I think Purdue can win this game. Like, I wouldn't be shocked if Purdue won. It's not like a guaranteed pick. Really going to be close. I think it's going to come down to who's going to has the ball, who has the ball in the last shot, basically. And I just have a gut feeling it's going to be NC State. How about you, though?
Mhm.
But
I mean, I agree. Yeah.
historically though, it's been really bad for 11 seeds. And 11 seeds never made the final before. Like historically,
Really, I didn't know that.
yes,
I
I think
mean,
it's like 6 teams in history. Loyola Chicago was one of them in 2018 who made the Final Four in the 11 seed, and none of them have made the championship game. So I think it's statistically against NC State right now. But again, seeds don't really mean anything at this point, as long as just who
yeah,
wins games. You know what I mean? Like earlier in the tournament, it's like okay, like St. Peter's versus Tennessee, like it's going to be like it's a big matchup. But now it's like all right, put the numbers away. We just got to win. You know what I mean? It doesn't really matter.
yeah,
There's no home court advantage. There's no home field advantage. There's no, which crowd is going to get to them better. You know what I mean? Like that doesn't exist.
yeah.
Madness.
I mean, yeah, I everything you said, I agree with. Like this team, it's good. You're playing probably one of the second best team in basketball, college basketball right now versus the hottest team. I think it's to be a really good matchup. I'm only gonna pick Purdue because I really hope they play UConn because that matchup of Killian versus Edey would be probably one of the best like finals we've had since the Villanova North Carolina games. Like it's gonna be an amazing matchup if they play. So that's the reason why I'm only thinking that Purdue's gonna win, but. Deep down, I really hope NC State wins. I don't feel confident in this Purdue team. I've never felt confident in them. Maybe that's on me, but I've never felt confident in them. As a Michigan fan, they haven't shown me anything that like they haven't done enough to prove to me that they deserve to win this championship. They can win this game. I think that NC State's really proved to me that they're a legit team. They're like the way they play, the grittiness, the hustle, DJ Burns, coolness and under pressure. Like this team is really proving that they're a legit team, and I think that it's gonna be down to the wire game. I think Purdue's gonna edge it out, but I really hope I really hope NC State does because I would love to see them in the final. As you said, a team's never done that before, 11 seed, but it's gonna be a really close game. It's gonna the key matchup is gonna be DJ Burns and Zach Edey. As you said, like how they're playing defense is going to affect the game, and I think it's a much bigger deal this game than it has in the rest of the tournament.
Absolutely. I think honestly, I'm more excited for this game than I am the UConn game. Um, like I'll be completely I'm just gonna say it now. I think UConn's gonna win this game. I just feel it. UConn's been dominating literally the entire tournament. Their worst loss so far was still over 20 points. Or their biggest, how do I frame this? The lowest deficit.
Their lowest win.
Right. It was 20 points, basically around 20 points. UConn's been
Who did
really
they just beat again in the Elite Eight?
Illinois. Not even just beat Illinois,
Yeah,
dominated Illinois.
dude.
77-22, and then
Jeez,
they
yeah.
dominated.
They went on a 25-0 run, 28-0 run.
Yeah, I think there was like Illinois didn't score for like 25.
Something. It was something that was just insane.
And then you also have they beat the runner-ups last year, San Diego State, by 30 points. They defeated Stetson, the first round.
Stetson.
What is it?
Stetson.
Stetson? I said Stetson.
Come on, man.
Hold
That's
on.
Jacob deGrom's college.
Is it really?
I
Wow.
only like MLB The Show. They talk about it. He was a shortstop there.
Huh.
Yeah, but back on point. I agree with you. I watched a video this week about I believe it's Dan Harley's practices and how they're so much harder than games, and I love that. That's like that made me think that they're gonna win the tournament because when your practices are harder than your games, the games are gonna come so much easier. That team is so dominant, and it's full of guys who are low stars, 0 stars, 3 stars, 5 stars. It's a great mix of talent. I mean, I had them picked to win last year. I thought that team was really solid under the radar. This year, I didn't like them as much because they were so on the radar. Last year, they had guys like Jordan Hawkins who went as a first round pick, but I mean, this team is really good. You said like this team is dominating.
You know what
I
their
mean, I
coaching
didn't.
reminds me
Yeah,
of too? And their coaching reminds me a lot of Coach K. Just like expecting a lot and like being the villain and knowing that they're
yeah,
going to have to run through a lot and expecting perfection,
yeah.
professionalism and perfection. You know, the way their coach is so Coach K like, it's like crazy. And every time I'm watching UConn, I'm just like, it's like Duke from 2011. Like
Yeah.
it's Duke, 2015 Duke right there.
I mean, I think it has the best parts too because these guys are coming back. This isn't any like a one and done team. Most of these guys will go to the draft next year, but they have guys who have been there. Like Killian was there last year. Everyone thought he was gonna leave. He came back. So I think I love how you're talking about. Like I didn't even think about that. Like I think that's a great comparison. Coach K, probably the greatest college basketball coach of all time. Like
Well, I don't
that's
like
what he's
Duke,
building
so
at
whatever.
UConn.
But yeah.
You know
Yeah.
who do you think is better than Coach K?
No, I mean, I think
Don't
Coach
say
K is the
Bob.
best coach. I know Coach K is the best. I just don't like Duke and I don't like Coach K. And I
Oh
don't,
yeah.
you know what I mean?
Either
That's
way,
just me
Coach
as
K
a
was an
fan,
amazing coach. Yeah.
saying. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, that team is really good. The guy from Rutgers, I forget his name, but that guy's been way better than he was at Rutgers. I went to a Rutgers game last year. They weren't all that. So I really like this team. I think Alabama is going to be a hard matchup because Alabama's they're not like spectacular at anything, but they're not really bad at anything. Um, but I think it's their big man thing. If Killian can dominate, they're going to win because he's a 7 footer. Like that's all you need. So I don't think they're going to blow out Alabama, but I could be wrong because I think they were going to blow out Illinois. Illinois is a really solid team, and I think they went on at least a 20-0 run after like the second half. Like that doesn't happen in college basketball often. It doesn't happen in March Madness often, especially in Elite Eight game. So, I mean, I still think UConn is the favorites. I think you're going to say the same thing as me, which they're just so dominant and the coaching is impeccable, and they should be blowing Alabama out the water. But
That being said though, they did beat UNC, and we all know how good UNC is, and we all know how well they're coached. Obviously, I think UConn is a little better, but they can beat the big dogs. So I think one can make an argument, and they beat Clemson, which was riding a ton of momentum. So maybe not as much as UConn or NC State or Purdue in particular, but I think Alabama could make this a sneaky close game. I just don't think they can compete with UConn necessarily. It's nothing, not a dig on Alabama as a team, but when we're looking at matchups and possessions and who's guarding who, UConn by far is just taking the cake. That being said, though, UConn's going to be playing under a lot of pressure. They're going to have to be perfect. They're going to have to excel. It's not so easy to do that all the time. You know what I mean? So it can be really interesting to see how this works out.
I mean, I agree with you. I haven't watched a lot of Alabama basketball this year because they didn't have somebody like Brandon Miller last year. He's just been a superstar at the gate. But they're a really solid team. I had them going not this far, but I had them going decently far. If you guys didn't know, my bracket's absolutely fucked, like fucked. Um, but yeah, I mean, Alabama's gonna put up a really big fight. We're gonna see how much of football they're like. Like, can they handle the Final Four? Are they gonna be that team? This up Alabama's been good for like since JD Davidson. They've been good for a while. They've been good for a good 2 to 3 years. So I mean, keeping this up, they're gonna get prospects, they're gonna get guys, and they're gonna get recruits. Sorry, not prospects. Thinking of MLB still. But I mean, it's going to be a really good game. I think you made a very good point of the matchups are everything is in UConn's favor. But I think
Yeah,
Alabama knows that going in. I think that's going to drive. If Alabama wins this game, it's because they want to be the underdog. They want to take down the champ. They don't want this back-to-back thing to happen. But I mean, I think UConn's going to pull it out still. I think UConn's a much better team as we've said this entire episode. But yeah, I mean, Alabama's a really good team. They fought really hard. They did beat Clemson. They beat North Carolina, two very good teams. So they've shown that they can handle the big dogs. They've shown that they can play with the big guys. And I mean, it's going to be a really good game. It's going to be a really good game. I think NC State versus Purdue is going to be a better, more fun game to watch. But if UConn, I would not be surprised if it goes on like a one possession game in the last few seconds and UConn wins this game. I think it's going to be very big for that team too. If that happens, they're going to if UConn wins this game by one possession, they're going to destroy whoever they play in the finals because they're going to work so much harder to get out of that again. So, I mean, it's going to be a really important game, but like it is for Purdue, it's UConn's game to lose. It's the underdog's game to win. So they're really going to be fighting for their spot here.
definitely. And, it's going to be really an entertaining weekend. It's kind of crazy how it's already winded down and that the Final Four is tomorrow and the championship is Monday, Tuesday. Monday or Tuesday? Monday,
I believe
right?
it's Monday.
I believe it's
I believe it's
Monday
Monday.
too. Well, it's gonna be a wild week. Oh my God.
Dude, it's April. We end college in a month.
I know. Well, there's a lot going on. Miles Talk Sports is gonna be heading to Fenway Park on Thursday. So
Why isn't Miles like working Savannah? Like, come on, bro.
Miles Talk Sports was not in Savannah because Millman Management was in Savannah, and I'm the second choice on the roster, which is fine because he's more skilled at photography and videography than I am, maybe. But I think Miles Talk Sports will soon be, collaborating on that front. I can't really say who, but with some big names. But Miles Talk Sports will be at Fenway Park on Thursday playing the Orioles on a job fair, business fair. So it's going to be super entertaining, super fun. Got invited to go out there, so I'm going to take that opportunity.
Everybody check in that the content coming from Miles Talk Sports. We're gonna see some
check out
really
the
fun stuff this
content.
week.
And it's crazy here sometimes. It's just like sounds here because it's like a weird. I'm in like the computer science building at my college, so it's just like weird and like wonky. Anyway,
But before we end this video, we're gonna do two quick things.
yeah.
So you have NC State and I have Purdue. Who do you have winning the UConn game?
Oh, UConn. Yeah. I mean,
UConn. And then do you think UConn is better than NC State? Who do you have winning the championship now?
UConn's going to win it
After
all. There's no shot. NC State
you
has
think so?
Yeah. No.
Okay, I agree with you. I think that the winner of the UConn game will win the championship.
Yeah.
I think if Alabama wins and Purdue wins, it's going to be a really fun game. Actually, I don't know anymore. If Alabama and NC State are in the championship, I'm taking NC State. Alabama, Purdue, I'm taking Purdue. But if UConn wins, they're beating anybody else. So that's my opinion.
Imagine NC State wins the national championship.
Dude, I would be so happy. I love that team. Isn't really fun to watch. They seem like really great.
Just think about that for a second.
Barstool.
Imagine NC State is holding up the championship thing.
And that's the first time since Jimmy V, too. Two historic teams if they win the championship. Jimmy V and DJ Burns.
Absolutely. On that note, that ends episode number 10 of 718 Sports. We'll be back Sunday. My Yankees lost today, unfortunately, but
So did my Tigers lost yesterday, so
Tigers lost yesterday. So we should stop talking about baseball, is what that means. So we're gonna start talking about basketball. When, as a Detroit Pistons fan, I know you are really happy for your first round matchup. And as a Brooklyn Nets fan, I am also excited to host some playoff games. Nope, it sucks. We both suck. But we're going to talk about that later. That's just a sneak peek. We'll see you next time on 718 Sports. Have a wonderful evening.
go watch those college basketball games, everybody. Watch them all.